So, hello everybody. Sharon Faith here. I want to thank everyone for joining me. And this week we have Charles Landry from Canada, and he's going to share his experience of renting and riding in Guatemala. So, take it away, Charles.
Thanks. So first off, I just wanted to kind of give you a quick rundown of who the heck I am. So I work in the construction field. So I work long hours in the summer, and that allows me a little bit more freedom in the winter. So that's where these trips have come from. So I've been doing trips down south. I was in Belize in 2018, then did Guatemala in 2019, and then Belize again this year, just because it was a lot shorter time span that I had free. So I just went back to Belize to see the northern section. Part of the reason I'm kind of happy to do this presentation is you don't have to be a professional traveler to be doing these kinds of trips. This is literally my second trip abroad, and I went 1,200 kilometers through the country. So anybody can do it. It's just getting over the fear of the unknown, and then you can do these adventures. So I'll start off by sharing my screen, and I'll show you the map, and then we'll start doing the, this is what I want to share. Let me know if you folks see this.
Yep.
Perfect. So decently big country. So basically, the main international airport is in Guatemala City. So from Guatemala City, I just took a taxi ride right straight from the airport into Antigua, so where Greg is living at the moment. Beautiful city, Spanish colonial styling for a lot of stuff, cobblestone streets. It's a really beautiful spot. And I'll show you a few pictures in a bit. And just to give you a bit of an overview, so I went from Antigua, I went west. My original plan was to go through smaller roads through the mountain ranges here, but a few accidental misturns basically made me keep going on the main highway, and it's actually a really beautiful highway, not dirt road, but it's just an absolute beautiful highway that you can just bomb along through plantations. And I went down to the city, and then the heat, as soon as you get into the flatlands towards the Pacific coast, it was just sweltering. So that was a bit of a cue to turn and go back towards the north. And my destination was Lake Atitlan, so that's where I ended up. And then basically, I'll show you in a bit the whole thing, but basically went through and did a figure eight. So it's Guatemala City, Antigua, Atitlan to Lankin and Simok Champi. That'll show you a really beautiful river. And then out to Rio Dulce on the Atlantic coast. And then north to Tikal and Lago Petan and El Ramate, where I stayed for that section of that trip. And then went back down through, and this road is literally that straight. it's one of those straightaways, but it doesn't really feel like it when you're going through because it has ups and downs. So you don't really see, 50 miles of straight road in front of you. It just basically goes along. And then here in the section here, the Mag Tours was the people that I rented from had given me this little section to go through Shisek and what's the other town? It's a lot drier, more like desert type territory. Being from New Brunswick in middle of winter, it was quite interesting to go through, and it is quite warm, but it is beautiful. And basically went through and all along through all the way back to Antigua. So let's look at the pretty pictures now. So first off, one of the things that when I was trying to plan this trip is what to bring because you're going to be on the motorcycle and you have to bring all of your stuff. So basically my package was that green duffel bag. Looked on Amazon, found it on Amazon, and it's just basically the carry-on size of most airlines. That was one of my other criteria, is to be carry-on only, so that I don't lose luggage during the trip. Protection gear, I was wearing just steel toe construction boots. This year I was wearing more adventure boots, leather motorcycle riding boots, but for this trip I was wearing just a typical construction type boot, and knee pads, and the black basically the chunk of Velcro on the right side, that's a body armor. So I had a full top body armor and spine just to protect myself. You know, it's just one of those things. You're in the middle of nowhere. If you get off the bike, you rather not break an arm or just get a good scratch. It's a good thing to bring. And that backpack that has a 3-liter bladder, that is really, really nice when you're going through the desert sections. Having basically just shy of a gallon of water on your back is heavy, but it's highly recommended. Other little detail, I had the Spot Messenger with me, so that's a satellite messenger. I've had it for multiple years, and actually this year is the first year I actually did not renew the registration on it. More or less because actually almost everywhere I went, cell phone reception was not an issue, and a $20 US SIM card, you're connected to the world. So it was one of those things that I just couldn't justify it. There's so many new technology that works better than those spots now that basically that was my hesitation. And yeah. Mexico City Airport, massive airport that basically have to take a tram, a little train between the two terminals. So that was kind of cool. I'm from a small place, so our airports is Terminal 1 and Terminal 1. There's no big delay between getting from one terminal to another. Yeah. Mexico City, you hear that it's a big city until you see it from the air. It's a big city. Like, it's just sprawling. It's crazy. Beautiful spot. Just a volcano in the middle of Mexico City. And then started seeing the volcano is basically flying down, and starting to see the mountains is pretty cool. So this is the start of Mexico City and the madness of Mexico City driving. I see Greg smiling and laughing. I'm sure he can attest. I would say that of all my trip, all of the roads were very, very calm, very, like, I was almost alone most of the time. The only place that was really chaotic was basically the corridor between Antigua and Guatemala City. And I'm happy I wasn't the one driving, especially it was at night. So day one, we picked up the bike. And when I say we, Tammy Perry, that was presenting last week, was in Antigua at the same time that I was in the country. So the first day, my first full day in the country, we actually both rented a motorcycle, and we went for that light blue run to Hobbitonango, a little site that I'll be showing in a bit. It was a nice warm up going through the mountains and getting a feel for what it is driving in these little streets. One of the things that I had talked to Brad Risingler, I don't know if you folks know him, he had mentioned to me when I was planning my trip to make sure that I don't plan to be riding 600-700 kilometers a day. That is one of the big things, that you're going to be doing 40 miles an hour on average. Like 65 kilometers is a really good, like, you're doing good mileage when you're doing 65 kilometers an hour. So that was one of those things that was confirmed with that little trip around that. It's beautiful, and it's just there's so many corners and so many views that you just slow down, and also just places that you just completely get lost and you got to stop and look. So this was a little spot that we stayed in Antigua, beautiful spot. I'm trying to remember the name right offhand, but to be honest, almost all of them would look the same. It was in the southwest corner of the, once I'm on the map, I could show you where it is, but it was a beautiful spot, about 6 rooms, and I think it was like 25 US a night. So that was one of the things that Guatemala, I had forgotten when I did my trip to Belize again. Guatemala is very affordable. If you look around, you can find $200 a night places. That's everywhere. You can find fancy places, but you know, I think I went all the way down to $20 a night in El Ramate near Tikal. It wasn't a fancy spot, but you know, I was able to find some decent spots. So yeah, just a funky, nice little interior garden. And there's Tammy and I on our little motorcycles. So I had a 2013 Yamaha XT250, and she was on, I do believe, a Tornado, the little Honda 250 that they sell down there from Brazil. I think they're really nice bikes. No complaints about the bike. I blew a fork seal on the Yamaha about halfway in the trip, and when I came back and told the guys, they kind of rolled their eyes and go, "Ah, oh, not again." So it was a known hiccup on the bikes. It's not a full-on dirt bike, and you load them up, and it can be rough on the hardware. So yeah, that was the bikes. Loved it. Pretty much no problems with it until I got to 10,000 feet or 1,000 feet around the lake. I was starting to get a little bit of sputtering, but overall it ran really well. So this is the view from Hobbit-Tenango. Greg, you can confirm that's not El Fuego. That would be the one south of Lake Atitlan, I think. I forget the name of the volcanoes there.
That is Volcan Agua.
Volcan Agua, right? Yeah. And it's just a Hobbit-Tenango is a small little. It's a tourist trap. Let's be. I'll be honest with it. It's a tourist trap, but it's a really nicely done tourist trap. I didn't feel any pressure to buy anything, or there wasn't. It's basically a group of people wanting to protect that area and trying to get money to protect the highland forest in that area. So that was how they decided to try to save money. One thing that I found quite cool is it might have been also the time of year that I was there, but I would say almost 3/4 of the tourists that were there were actually relatively local. So like people from Guatemala City, not as much as Americans and you know, Germans and like my kind of tourists. It was a local tour, so that was kind of cool to see. Yeah, just really fun. A little bit. Say again?
City folk.
Yeah, exactly. It's just city folk going into the village kind of thing. Super steep. Like I cannot super steep driveway into the site. For the day one driving in the mountains, going up, Tammy and I went up and about halfway I stalled, and I was like, oh crap. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to take off again because it's just super steep. But we did it, and it went up, and no problem at all. So there are even more volcanoes, and Antigua would be just behind that brush to the left. Yeah, just a nice spot, just really nice. Typical street. Sorry for the pixelated video, but when we're talking about mountain roads, this is what I mean. So no guardrails and views and views and more views. And you can see there, I'm going 35, 40, that's kilometers an hour. So, you know, I'm just putting along, and honestly, you can go a lot faster in some sections, but you come up to this exact situation. Boyfriend taking a picture of the girlfriend in a corner. So you got to watch out. There's always random stuff happening. Yeah. So this is Antigua. The famous arch, Santa Catalina. It's one of those sites in the city that's super popular, and you see everybody taking pictures. And this is one of the main sites for the festival that we were just talking about, right, Greg? From what I understand.
Yeah, for Semana Santa, which is the whole week of Easter. Every day there's a procession that goes around the city, and it's, I mean, you're elbow to elbow, I mean, with the crowd. I mean, Antigua, normally the population is about 50,000 people, but during Semana Santa it goes up to 200,000.
Chaos.
Chaos.
Yeah, yeah.
Roads closed. All
Yeah.
roads are
Yeah. One thing to notice there is the cobble street. So every street, that's not just like a walkway, that's all the streets are like that. So I'm sure the mechanics have lots and lots of suspension work from that town. It's quite a sight to see. But as a civil, I work in the civil engineering world, and I kind of look at that and go, it's been holding up for a few hundred years. Is pretty impressive. So it's good. Yeah, just another view of the arch. And don't be shy if you have any questions. Especially we're not a big group. Basically, just ask away.
Sorry, Charles. What time of year were you there?
So this is I landed on February 5th, and I was there for 2 weeks. Yeah, really nice time of year. At least I had 1 day of light rain in Uspantan. The rest of the time was beautiful, 25 degrees in Antigua, and it was only warm when I got into the desert section. Rio Dulce and Tikal was also warm, like 40 degrees. So what is that, 105? Yeah, it was hot. Like, it was hot. Central Park, Antigua, just Tammy. I don't think she would have let me go by and not take a picture of me with the fountain. One really cool thing about Antigua, it's an old city. There's a lot of historic sites. There's a lot of stuff, and it's kind of cool. There's multiple generations of churches that basically they built a church, an earthquake destroyed it. They built another one beside it. Another earthquake destroyed the next one, and then they're all like half rebuilt or half in collapse and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool if you like a historical architecture. It's quite a nice place to sightsee. And this I liked. So it might be hard to see over the shared video, but that's like a chunk of building that collapsed, and then they just built around it. So they just continued the wall and just built around the wall. So it's kind of cool to see. They just build around. Don't need to take everything apart and rebuild. They just built around. So Antigua, all good things must come to an end. So basically, the next few pictures is my trip heading towards Lake Atitlan. Like I was saying, my original trip, I was supposed to go through Acatenango and go sort of towards Padzun, that you can see in the center of that map. But I just missed a bunch of corners, more or less just having fun and bombing along on a road and just having fun in the corner, and then stopping to look at the map and realizing I had missed the corner 20 miles before. So I just kind of went, whatever. It's a beautiful weather. I got lots of fuel, so keep on trucking. So this is at the base of Acatenango volcano. Sorry for the pixel. I don't know why. But so just basically a nice they were actually burning some of the shrubs below me. Just basically just a really, really nice farming area, and the volcano is in my background, in my back in this picture. It's a really big hike to get to the top. It's one of those things that next time I go to Guatemala, I do want to do is do some of the hikes. It was one of those things. I wanted to see an overview of the country, and next time it'll be a more focused adventure next time. Yeah. So this is what I was meaning about a beautiful road. So I was just bombing along on this road, and it's just brand new pavement, awesome views, and just having fun blasting through the countryside. And yeah, when you're expecting to go 60 and you're going closer to, or I should say, expecting to go 40 and you're going 60, 65 on these beautiful empty roads, I just kept on going. And that's part of the reason I I miss my corner, is just basically having too much fun. So this is coming back north, so from that loop down and then coming back up, and this is the first site of Lake Atitlan. Beautiful, beautiful spot. It's a volcanic crater lake, so there's one river, like a proper river going into it, but there's no river coming out of it. So it's kind of weird. They've got some issues with it. If you want to read up on geography and environmental issues with that situation, but it's a really, really nice place. And I spent 2 nights on the lake, one in I'll show on a map in a moment, and so one on the on the north shore, and then one night on the south shore. Actually, I'll switch to that map and I'll show you. So a picture that we were looking at just a moment ago is from right here. Actually, specifically right there. You can see there. So then I went around the lake. Totally random. Part of the reason I went through here is I was looking at a video that Brad had done, and he had stopped at Commodore Vulver. And right across from that, there's a beautiful view of the lake. That's just awesome. So that was like a bit of a destination that I wanted to go through, and it ended up going through this road would get me there. So Panajachal is one of the big cities on the lake. That's where I parked my motorcycle. So I'm trying to find the spot. So at the main, basically at the boat yard, trying to find it right here. So this is the main ferry dock for Panajachal. You can't, it's people only. So talking to different people, talking to Mag Tours, they had told me, so this is a boat storage area, actually just right here, I should show. And I spent $8 US, maybe $10 US to park the bike literally under the tree, and basically I grabbed my stuff and walked down to the ferry. One of the things about the ferry, I had been warned by Tammy. So locals pay 10 quetzales, tourists, or even less than that sometimes, and they'll often try to get you to pay like 30 quetzales to get onto the ferry. But basically, I do believe that's what he had said. Like I showed up and he's like, oh, 30. And I was like, no, 20. And he kind of like smiled and just, oh, okay, fine. And, you know, he took my 20. I think it's fair, personally, you know, comparing me with my big bag, my helmet, all my junk, you know, and I'm there for one night compared to the 75-pound little local that, you know, is taking 10 inches on the bench. I was taking a lot of room in the boat, so it was fair. It was a good run. And schedule is really loose. You know, that's one of the things. Just basically to know, just you're not gonna be. It won't be leaving exactly at the time that you think it's gonna leave. Just take it easy. And I spent one night in Santa Cruz. Beautiful spot. And then the next day, took the ferry back to Pananchachal, picked up the motorcycle, and went around the lake to stay in San Pedro. Hopefully, I'm not going too fast for you folks. I'm just seeing that I'm already 25 minutes in, and I haven't even done half of the trip. So I'll go through a little bit faster in the pictures, and don't be shy if you have questions. I'll answer them. So this is the view I was talking about from the corner store. Totally worth the detour. It's really, really nice spot. And I had a bag of chips and a pop from the corner store across just to enjoy the view with. Yeah, and that's the view from the store. Boat ride on the lake from Panajachel to Santa Cruz. The boats are packed. I teased one of the ladies that was behind me. The boat's not full until you're nervous. They pack them. They get them. There's money's worth. But if the weather's good, you know, there's no real danger. The guys know what they're doing. There's the ferry at Santa Cruz. And stereotypical spot. Probably most of the little villages look the same. You got those tuk-tuks that go up the hill, and I'm quite impressed at how tight, like they can climb like really, really steep hills and still go up. And Guana Perdida, it's right on the wharf. It's a very popular spot. I'm sure there's a lot of cheaper places to stay, but it was a quite nice place. I really enjoyed it. So that's where I stayed. One room. Everywhere I went, I stayed in a room and not like in a dormitory. So I did spend a little bit more for rooms. You know, you're spending 30, 35 US for a room compared to spending maybe 10 or 15 US for a dorm. It's worth it. You just don't have to deal with drunkenness and loudness and everything. Steep climb. That's into the town from the wharf. And just typical view. Dogs everywhere. Around the lake, the dogs are a little bit more healthy than other places, but you still gotta watch them. Like, you know, there's mean ones. A lot of them are quite nice though, but some of them are mean. Typical view. Really nice spot. Just the street views of there. It's all tight little streets that go up. That's the wash station for the town. That's where people do their laundry. And yeah, proper steep hill climb to get into the village from the water. It was really cool. So, can anybody guess what license plate would be on that motorcycle?
I'm gonna guess Canada.
It is
Gotta be New Brunswick.
close. It's Newfoundland. It's Tammy's bike. So that's Tammy Perry's bike. I was sitting there on the dock and I see this Kawasaki KLR motorcycle in Guatemala parked on the side. I was like, no, it can't be. I gotta go look. So I walked down to the motorcycle and look at the bike, and lo and behold, it's Tammy Perry's old bike that she drove from Newfoundland all the way to Guatemala in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, it's down there, and she had given it to a local because the import duties would have been too much for her to, like, the fine to get it back. So she just gave it to one of the locals, and he's been using it ever since. Yeah. I'll speed up here so I don't run out of time. Bar, restaurant at the hotel there. Really nice spot. A lot of younger yoga type people in there. I think that's a lot of what the lake is. You just gotta run with it, and they're not one of the annoying people. I'll put it this way: like the yoga crowd, I can totally deal. It's a whole lot better than the Cancun drunken frat boys. I'll put it that way. That's the public dock in Panajachal. So now to head north and into the warmer and mountainous region. Again, the hill climbs are just awesome. I wish I had a fuel injected motorcycle going through these mountains. I won't play that. I'll skip the videos and you folks can have a look at them later on. This is the next town on the other side of the lake in San Pedro. Yeah, I didn't want to mess up the names. There's a lot of different towns, and actually it's funny because there's a lot of towns that have the same name. The only difference is you look like it's San Pedro de la Laguna, and then you can have like San Pedro de Quiche or whatever. So you have to make sure to have the full name. If not, you'll be all over the place. Yeah. Just kids playing in the backyard. It was kind of cool. I went to the top of the hostel there, and just getting the local crowd. It was kind of cool. Yeah, I liked the town. It was quiet. It felt as if the time I went, well, I knew I was a little bit in the lull for tourism. Like I wasn't there during March break and I wasn't there during Christmas. And I like traveling that time because you still get all the services, but it's a little bit less crowded and often the prices are a little down. But yeah, just really nice place. It's one of those things, you know, and I'll say it's a nice place and it's beautiful. At the same time, there is a reality that, you know, on day one, we were going through the town and we went through a wet section on the road, and I didn't say anything to Tammy at that moment, but it was raw sewage. And it was one of those kind of like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're in a beautiful place, you see beautiful, but infrastructure is lacking. And then if you know, it's a reality of a developing country. Some of the dogs are super cute and relatively friendly. I avoided touching most of them, but they're nice. It's just cool to see that they're just all over the place. So this is the kind of hot shower that you may see.
Hot water.
All I can tell you, learn from my mistake. Don't try to adjust it while in the shower. My knees partially buckled. I'll put it this way. It was it's a scary setup. So that's basically cold water that goes into, well, basically imagine a hair dryer and then hot water comes out of it. That's basically what it is. And you can see that the wiring is not to North American code. And yeah, just they work. Just don't touch it. That's the only thing.
Suicide showers.
Yeah, suicide showers. I saw them in a few locations. The first one was my education, and then the other ones went well. Typical backyard view from the hostel. Just a really nice spot. I really enjoyed it. It's a nice spot. I'll skip the video. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite views of the trip. It just ended up being just a really nice day and nice trip. From what I understand, Atitlan is sort of like in a hole for weather, and it's almost always nice. Like it's a really beautiful spot, and they don't get bad weather too often, so it's really nice. If you like corners, if you like switchbacks, I highly recommend going to San Pedro. It's, as you can see, it's that times, I didn't count them, probably 25 or 30 of them that you're just zigzagging between to get down into the lake from the top of the mountain. And there you can see the switchbacks going down the mountain. Yeah. I'll skip that. So another view from a paddock from the top of the hill, and that's more or less about the highest area where I started having trouble with the carburetor. I think I'm around 11,000, just under 11,000 feet there. And the bike was a little bit down on power, but really not that bad, honestly, for the elevation. The streets can be quite tight. So that's a local bus, just basically the typical bus that runs the streets, and they just take their time and they make it work. Construction area went pretty well. So now I've skipped into the mountain. So I've went over the mountain range and into a large valley, and this is where it starts to be a lot warmer, a lot drier, pine forest instead of, you know, more jungle type weather. But beautiful spot. The roads were in really good shape, pavement for the most part, and then like really good pavement, like new pavement for a good part of it. So it was really nice to drive and just really smooth. Going through a town and just the smell of like a really fresh bread caught my nose, and I turned around and stopped in this bakery, and I will say my Spanish is very limited. I did 90 days of Duolingo, or 100 days of Duolingo before going on the trip. So, you know, cuatro cuesta, you know, I can, a few questions here. But anyways, I started talking to the lady there, and I was like, so how much is a muffin? She's like, 1 quetzales. Oh, okay. So how much is a croissant type thing? 1 quetzales. And I think I asked like the third thing, and she's like, 1 quetzales. So I kind of got the hint from the third one of everything's 1, just like, what do you want? So I gave her a $5 and grabbed a bunch of these stuff. Awesome, you know, from the cooked that morning. It was baked this morning. It was awesome. It was really, really good food. Yeah. And yeah, just to tell you, like, you know, 1 quetzales is what, 15 cents or like 10 cents. So very, very cheap. I know the numbers in Canadian, so it's 17 cents Canadian. I'd have to do the math from that to give you an American, but yeah. So this is east of Uspantan. So Uspantan, up to Uspantan felt like just regular roads and just going through country. But from Uspantan to Coban, that was like back road. Like it felt proper back road, and you'll see what I mean. It goes through what looks like a lot of mining area where they do a lot of aggregate extraction, and the roads were proper, basically like quarry roads or just, yeah, country roads. Just basically bombing along. It was really fun. Rough. It tested the suspension on the bike, but it was good fun. And you can see there just a smooth dirt road. One of the things, you're driving along and you kind of going, oh crap, am I on the right road or am I going in the middle of nowhere? And then you'll meet a bus that's on the road and you go, oh, okay, yeah, no, this is the main road. This is the way to go through. So this is Lankin. So to go back to the map, Uspantan right here. This is what I mean by this section that was a little bit more like back road mining area that felt a lot more mine road. And actually, this is one of those random things that I had noticed on satellite view. It's a big landslide, like a humongous landslide. And that's the corner that I had to picture the going through around. It was kind of cool to see. It's just one big landslide. But going through, Coban is one of the bigger city in the central part of the country. But then I'm showing Lankin. And Lankin, the reason I was in Lankin was for Simok Champi. I'll show you some pictures of that. So yeah, nice place. Very backpackish, yoga retreat. A lot more younger crowd there. It's the destination, I would say, for the younger hostel type crew. It was fine. I really enjoyed it. You just basically got to be careful. The prices can be sometimes a little bit high if you're not careful. Basically, with some of the places are expensive for what you get. This is in Simuk. One of the kids was just playing around. They sell that aluminum sheet that he's got in the bucket is actually homemade chocolate that's literally just cocoa crushed down with sugar in it, and it was delicious. I bought a few, and yeah, it's really cool. The one thing that was really interesting, it's not like milk chocolate. It doesn't melt in high temperature, at least not as much as regular. Like it was in my backpack and it didn't just get destroyed. It stayed in its sort of granular state. Mirador, going up the climb. I thought I was having a heart attack about halfway up. It's a it's a big climb and you're at higher altitude, so it hits you a little bit hard. And it's all worth to go and have this look of where you're going to be swimming in a bit. So this is Simuk Champi. Long story. I can look online. You can find the information, but it's a really beautiful, really, really calm river that actually has a river underneath it. And it's a really nice place to have a swim. I'll skip the video. Like I said, I'll share the album of a picture. You can see all me having fun in the water and a bunch of other tourists. And this is the little hiking trail to go to the cavern. So I'll let that video play so you can see.
You did the cave tour.
Yeah, I did the cave tour.
Very good.
So that's the Kaban cave tour. It's about a half hour, less than a mile in. I don't have the numbers, but it'd be probably about 3/4 of a mile in that you go in as a group, and there's ropes and there's a little bit of swimming, but most of the time you're touching the ground, and it's candlelit, as you can see. Really, really fun, totally worth it. The water is warm, I'd say 20, 25, that would be 70, 75-ish. Like it's swimmable, you're not freezing your ass off like most caverns. I'm from an area where caverns are 4 degrees, just above freezing. So there it's nice that it's warm. This is the little dirt road down to Simuk. Just beautiful road. You'll see there's a few sections that are steep, and they've built these concrete grips into the street, and it's kind of cool to. Yeah, it doesn't want to play well, at least. But anyways, yeah, just grips to go up the hill. It's quite steep in a few places. So this is between Simuk Champi and Rio Dulce, so going towards the Atlantic coast. So this was Simuk, beautiful river. So I did this, and this is a back road. Like you're into the mountains. It's been improved in the last few years because of a hydroelectric project on the eastern end that I kind of like, I hadn't read about or I didn't know about until I went across the bridge, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Beautiful spot. Probably one of my highlights for views. Unfortunately, a lot of my helmet camera video of this area was all fogged out because it is warm. Like it's starting to get warm. Yeah. But yeah, just beautiful spot. You're on the ridge. You're often right at the top of the ridge or just below the ridge, and you're kind of like flip-flopping from one side to the other. It's really fun. So this is when you start seeing the delta and Ligo Isabella. So mountain until you reach Chulac, and then you start seeing this Parque Natural Boca del. Well, that's basically a big delta of Lago Isabella, so flatland, farming land. And this is the, yeah. So infrastructure is not always up to North American standard. I'll let this play and hopefully you can see. Have a look. Do you see these steel plates? Well, there's a reason for those steel plates. Is because of those. So you got to be careful when you're driving along. There's some damage on the roads, and you got to be careful where you're going. But on a motorcycle, that's one of the big advantages. You only need 4 inches wide to cross, and you're fine. I mentioned earlier at the start of the presentation some tolls. So just after that bridge, I was going along on the dirt road, and I see three guys that were standing in the road, and one of them starts to pull a string, and it's a flag, like a string with flags on it, and you're like, oh, what the heck? Well, those are illegal tolls. It's just locals that are trying to make a buck. The first place I stopped, he asked for 5 quetzales or 10 quetzales. So like $1.50, like, you know, not a whole lot of money. So pretty much without any hesitation, it's just, yeah, here, like, you know, whatever. But what pissed me off, about half an hour later, I come around the corner and another group of people were basically doing the same thing, blocking the road. And they're actually sort of, I kind of went to the guy. I was like, come on, man, like 20 minutes ago, I just spent 10 there. Like, what are you doing? And he was asking for 20. And I said, no, I'll give you 10. And I didn't have a 10 on me. I actually had only a 20. So I asked him for change. So, and he gave it to me. So that kind of tells you, like, you know, they don't have a knife to your neck. It's just kind of like they're trying to make a buck. Unemployment's really, really bad in that area. So, yeah.
One of the main reasons that they do that is that they actually voluntarily go out and repair the road because there is no infrastructure to repair the roads. So they'll voluntarily do that, and then they'll generally ask for money.
Yeah, exactly. So this is in Rio Dulce, so onto the Atlantic coast. Castillo San Felipe, it's a super old fortress that was it got run over by pirates, whatever era, but it was Spanish built to try to protect the lake from piracy. Have a look online. There's a million websites that can tell you more details about it, and I'm just trying to do an overview. But it's right at the neck of the river where it's very, very narrow, so it was a strategic location. It was cool to see. So this is Rio Dulce. It's a small town, but it's a very important small town. It's one of the economic center, if you want, of that little region, and it's loud, a lot of traffic, as you can see, and I was happy that I spent a little bit more and got an air-conditioned room. It was 40 degrees Celsius while I was there, so that's 105. It's over 100 degrees. It's warm. Yeah. The asphalt was soft. Big bridge over the river. Just a little girl in there. And yeah, just busy traffic, 18-wheeler. And full Pentecostal church across from the hotel that was blaring music and singing until not that late, like it lasted about an hour and a half. I was afraid that it was going to last longer, but it ended at a reasonable time. So this is, you can see in the lower portion of that picture, Lago Isabela. That's Rio Dulce at the corner there. And then I won't lie, I bombed up from, so I drove more or less top speed from Rio Dulce all the way to the Tikal region. There's a lot of beautiful stuff to see, but that was my longest day at 200 and a little over 100 and like 150 miles. I'd have to look at the kilometers exactly, but it was a long day of driving on sorry, I'll say it again. It was a long haul, but it was a quick ride because it was good pavement. It wasn't rough mountainous road. It was a quick ride up. This is in El Ramate, small. It's the last proper village town before you get into Tikal, and I found a little place there that I stayed at that was dirt cheap. You do get what you pay for, but I really enjoyed the place I stayed. This was the so this was the free dock that you could go and hang out and have a swim, and So the sign says basically wharf, the right hand wharf costs $5 to go on to. And basically the other one was really nice. This one you were walking and half of those planks weren't nailed down anymore. So you got to, you know, be careful and you go out, but it was really nice to swim in the 40-degree weather or 100-degree weather. So this is Tikal, basically capital of one of the largest Mayan civilization many, many years ago. It's well worth the visit. I went early in the morning, so I left basically at daybreak to try to be there as early as possible. And I was there until about 1 p.m. and then the heat, you know, it was like 105, 110. I was melting, and I only saw probably a quarter of the site, but it's worth the visit. It's amazing spot. They've done a lot of work to restore a lot of the sites. You can't climb on everything, but you can climb on most things, and it's pretty cool to see. Like it's a big site, and they're still discovering a bunch of sites. There is tours. I opted not to do a tour, more or less because I had read a lot on Tikal before taking off, and a lot of the places when you go into the locations, you can read up about it on the little boards. More or less, it's a question of freedom. I didn't really want to be stuck with a group and having to follow, and especially with the heat wave that I wanted to be able to call it quits whenever I wanted. Yeah, and just the broken up sites, they have wooden stairs that go up, and other sections where the stairs are still decent, you can go up. But let's just say the occupational health and safety was not very strong 2,000 years ago. So some of those stairs are not building code compliant. A lot of wildlife. It was kind of cool to see, you know, you get howler monkeys and spider monkeys and a bunch of different things going around. So if you're there at the right time of day and year, you'll have a wilderness experience at the same time. And they're still digging more sections. They're finding more and more stuff. So that's the entrance. It's a long haul from the entrance to the site, and you got to be careful. I was warned before, they not all the time, but they'll time you. So they write down the time when you go into the gate, and when you get to the other end, they sometimes will stop people and look at the time, and if it took you not enough time to go through, they can give you a speeding fine. And from what I understand, it's quite a bit of money for the speeding. I don't know the whole details. I was just warned, follow the speed limit within the park, because it can be expensive. Yeah. That's the wharf after a long day in Tikal. I went out and hung out with some of the locals and some of the tourists, and just hanging out in the water. It was really nice. And just a beautiful spot. Yeah. So the dog and bird pets of the hotel that were just playing, and it was kind of cool to see just a dog playing with a bird. And there was a duck not that far away, and there was there's just animals everywhere, cats and stuff. Yeah, there's a cat. Typical breakfast, really good food. I ate well everywhere. I didn't stop myself from eating anything. The only thing I did do is always drink either bottled water or filter the water that I would drink. That's the only thing. You know, that's fresh cheese in there. I didn't stop myself from eating any kind of dairy product or anything. I wasn't sick. I did take Imodium for maybe 2 or 3 days right at the start. I wouldn't say I got sick. I would say it was more of a change of diet, going from never eating plantain and you know papaya and a bunch of different things. Just upping your fiber, you'll might have some issues, but yeah. This is the inside. Sayache, there's a river but no bridge, and you've got two options for a ferry. So Sayache, so this is Flores, Tikal area, and then I headed south, and right here in Sayache, you got two options. You can either take what I'll call a long boat, like a really big canoe, or you can wait for the vehicle ferry. But on a motorcycle, no question, you just jump on this, because this will run like 10 times when the car ferry will go once. Like it's a lot faster and very cheap. I'm trying to remember, I think it was like 5 quetzales. That'd be under $1, so it was nice. Oh. So this was Andy. When I was in Tikal that evening, I'm hungry. I go out to a restaurant, and I see this motorcycle in front of the restaurant. So I park beside it and go into the restaurant, and then I notice that Andy has a helmet on his table. So I just basically say hi. I could tell that he was more than likely not local, or not even like an expat kind of thing. Like he was a proper tourist. And come to find out, he was from Germany and doing a trip from Mexico, basically like as far as he could go in that 2 or 3 months that he had. So his game plan, he bought a cheap little 125 cargo in Mexico and was driving all the way down to Panama, and might sell his bike there and then buy another one in Colombia. Being probably cheaper than trying to cross over with the bike. So I had my meal with him that night, and the next morning I'm driving along, and here I come up to this little cargo 125 going along with this guy on it. So I just stopped and said hello, and then we rode for probably about 2 hours on that really straight section of road. We shared the road for that section, and then when we got to the bottom, he was going east and I was going west. So we broke. And it was just kind of fun to meet, travelers on the road. Yeah. Really fun roads. So this is just north of Coban. Basically beautiful asphalt road into the mountains. Loved it. Basically, the only thing you got to be careful is animals and other cars. It wasn't as bad. So right there, you can see a dog in the corner. I would say there is road hazards that you got to be careful of, but I felt a lot safer on the Guatemalan roads than I feel when I'm in Belize. Belize is a lot more accessible for a tourist, but the roads are chaotic. The buses are maniacs in Belize compared to Guatemala, because the roads are so rough and in mountainous. You as a motorcycle tend to go faster than the crowd, so you're able to break away. So we're coming up to the hour. Sorry, Sharon, I might bust a few minutes, but so this is Posada Real Calcha that I stayed at for one night, and small world, just to tell you how people are friendly. So this is Gustavo and Jan, the owners of the place. He lived actually in Seattle a few years. So here I am in Coban, day 3 or 4 of my trip, and I'm running out of money, so I have to find an ATM. So I come into the town and I see McDonald's, and just to have a place to park, I pull into the McDonald's parking lot, park my bike, and start looking on Google Maps to find an ATM that can service. And there's a mall just behind the McDonald's. So I'm doing this, and I'm starting to rip my gear off. Gustavo walks up to me. I don't know this guy, and just started chatting up, and oh, hey, you traveling? Yeah. So super friendly guy, starts chatting up, tells me, he was living in the States for a while, and that he lives in Carcha, and he was just in Coban for running errands or whatever. And he's like, oh, so are you staying in this area, in the near future? And I'm, well, no, I'm not staying there. I'm going to Lakin. He's like, well, you have to come to my hotel. You have to come to my hotel. I'm like, well, I can't tonight because I'm going to Lankin, but I will be in Coban again, like next week in a few days. He pulls out a pack of matches and writes the address of his hotel in there, and he's like, and he gave me his WhatsApp, phone number, the whole 9 yards, and he's like, you have to come to my place. It'll be my treat. You'll be able to meet the people. So the next week, I called him while I was in Tikal, started organizing it with him, and he hosted me, and super nice. Started talking about he owns land in the Rio Dulce area, and you know, his daughter's living in the States, and that he wished that she'd come back to Guatemala, but he understands why and all that kind of stuff. And basically, he's just super nice guy, and you could tell he's involved with his community. So the shirt that he's wearing, the Ria Calcha Hotel, well, he is also the host and sort of like the major sponsor of the local second division soccer team or football team in their world. So actually, that evening we ate supper with that football team, the soccer team, and it was just cool to see, you know, just authentic, friendly people. Another occupational health and safety is not exactly always the same as North America. You need an extension cord? No worries. Just wrap her up and electrical tape it, and it works. It works. So this is the last day of riding. So from the Coban region all the way back down to Antigua. So this is the section I went through the desert and very hot, dry area. You can see right there, this is a lot drier, mountainous region. So this is the Rabinal area. I'll try to show you. Whoa. I got multiple. So Coban, where I stayed, and then the pictures I'm showing you right now, this is Rabinal Salama area, and then basically back into the mountains in a bit. But yeah, very warm, very dry, but beautiful spot. It was cool to see. I would not want to go there through their dry season or their warm season. It was pretty warm. Greg might be able to give you more details on it, but basically it's a really weird road from Rabinal down to Antigua. It's a failed development project. So you'll be driving for, say, 2 miles on perfect asphalt, as you can see in that screen capture. And then you're onto a 10-foot wide gravel road for about 2 miles. And then back to a wide, beautiful road, and then back to a narrow. It's really weird. And there was a lot of fraud 10 years ago, just after the Civil War, where a lot of international money was coming into the country. And let's just say they organized to spend as much money on the project without the project ending up on the right time. But for dirt bike, for motorcycle people, it's really nice because you get a break and can bomb along on these beautiful empty roads, and then a little bit of a break onto dirt road. Perfect example of like failed development. I read up about the bridge a little while ago. So big storm went through the town, destroyed the existing bridge. They got money to build a bridge, but it seems as if they built the first section and then nothing was built further than that. There's a little Bailey Bridge next to it. That's the main bridge, but yeah, just one of those. It's interesting to see, and it's part of the nitty gritty under the skirt of a developing country. There's sections that are interesting. Mountainous region, for people that don't live in mountainous area, that's a runaway lane. So in the places where there is enough traffic, they actually do build these just like they do out west. Being that I work in the civil engineering world, is one of those random things that I enjoyed seeing. So basically it's for trucks that run out of brakes, they can take that lane and slow down without crashing into other people. And that's basically a wrap around to Antigua. the big market in Antigua. You can buy pretty much everything. You can buy bootleg DVDs of Bollywood movies or pairs of jeans for $5 or little purses, food, everything. Basically anything under the sun can be bought there, including live chickens and lukewarm meat. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's everything under the sun's for sale, basically. Yeah, just it was nice. Just basically going through and seeing all the little different things, and yeah, there's a live chickens for sale. And yeah, clothing. This is the Nimpot. So the other market was more tourist trap type stuff, and just, you know, a little bit of everything. You know, even locals would probably buy some. Well, the locals would probably buy food there. Greg can probably confirm that. But this is Nimpot, where it's a cooperative market where the locals can sell their artisanal products. So there's, and I can't even start to describe everything that's in there, but all the pottery and everything, and a lot of the clothing. So if you look at the knitwear that's in the back there, that some of them are actually used. So they are different, like sort of like kilts. Each of the different patterns are to certain families or certain villages, and you can, yeah, basically there's a bunch of different things. You can even buy them online through the Nimpot export, but it was really cool to go through. And I was being a bit bad taking a picture. You're not supposed to take pictures in there because they've had people steal patterns and steal designs from that site. So they've been trying to protect the artisanal side of things. Yeah, just a really cool place to go through. I bought a few things from my sister's daughter, just for a souvenir. This is a museum in the center of Antigua. I probably took the Cooperación Española that I went through and took a visit. It was really cool to see. It's an art gallery, it's a museum, it's a school, it's a really nice place to go through, and just a bunch of randomness. The art gallery was full of a bunch of different artists. This is, I think, one from Bolivia, and just a really beautiful spot to take a visit when you're in town. And this is just a typical little one of the churches in town. There was a cost to visit this one that I didn't go into. But there's a lot of historic sites that you can visit through Antigua. You could probably spend a week easy in Antigua and still not see everything. It's a surprisingly dense city with a lot of history and a lot of stuff. This is the walk up to the view. Unfortunately, it was a hazy day, so right straight ahead is a volcano, but you can barely see it through the clouds. I see Greg peering up. Can you see it today?
I can barely just make out the outline of Agua.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Acatenango or Fuego in about 4 or 5 days.
Oh, yeah.
From Antigua.
Yeah. So just a beautiful view, despite even the haze. A lot of tourists, but at the same time, a lot of locals that was or townies that were visiting. And again, dogs are everywhere. I think that's a section you can see the cobblestone streets, and just the architecture of the area. It's a really nice. You can see there's a lot of pride, or a lot of people are very conscious of looks in Antigua, particularly. So it's a very clean. There's no garbage everywhere. It's not your typical Guatemalan city in that side. Café Noze, I think if that's the right name. Yeah. Basically a little speakeasy type thing that was popular back in the day with if you wanted to toke a joint, that was one of the locations. Nice place. So this is one of the four corners of the Central Park. There's a lot of buildings. So this used to be the Capitol, like the federal building, and now it's the City Hall, if I'm not mistaken, Greg. And yeah.
That's the municipality, and then I bet you have a picture on the other side of the park.
Yeah, so that's inside the park, kind of zoomed in, people selling stuff. This is 200 pictures of, I've got like 400 and some pictures in a different album, so I'm limited on the pictures. This is the fanciest McDonald's I've ever eaten at. The Antigua McDonald's. Even if you don't eat McDonald's, go to the McDonald's. It's worth visiting just for the sight of the fanciness of that McDonald's. Is really, really cool to see. Tourist bus. They're loud, colorful rigs. Most of them are old US buses, so it's funny because they're all painted up and all beautiful, but then they take off and it's just a big old plume of diesel smoke on the back because they're still old school buses. They're yeah. Say again? Yeah, chicken buses. Yeah. And that's about it for the trip, folks. As you can see, this is the pictures of flight back. This would be, again, Mexico City. The reason I don't have a lot of pictures of Guatemala City is because both of my flights in and out were after sunset. So I didn't really get, or before sunrise. So I didn't get a whole lot of pictures of Guatemala City, but yeah, Mexico City is massive. Yeah. So I've already busted the time, so sorry, Sharon, on that. I hope you folks enjoyed it. I went through really, really fast. If you have any questions at all, don't be shy. You can either ask them now, or you can send me a message on Facebook. Greg, being that he's one of the a local now, could probably chime in on something that I don't have an answer for you right now. But yeah, sometimes a lot of people kind of ask for budget. All in, I'm trying to do the quick mental math of converting it to US dollars. It was under 2,500 US. It would have probably been about 22. And that's, I'm talking everything, including the flight and everything. Getting seat sales is probably one of the big things to try to get to Guatemala City for cheap. I think my flight was 700 Canadian. So what is that, like 500 US? And that's like a decent price. It's not like a killer deal, but it's not the full price that can sometimes be like 1,000 US. It's probably cheaper for you folks. You know, I'm coming in from Canada. It adds up a lot of cost, but if you're coming down from Miami, it might be a lot less. But yeah, it's a really, really affordable trip. That loop that you're seeing there is 1,200 kilometers. So what is that, 800 miles? And the way I kind of planned the trip, it's basically I did 1 day of driving, 1 day of visiting the place I was, and then another day of driving, visiting where I was. And well, it all depends what you want to do, but you know, for me to drive 10 days in a row, you just get saturated and you're not experiencing the place. It's nice to take a full day to actually see where you are. Yeah, so it was a really nice trip. There's a bunch of other places I want to go eventually in Guatemala, but at the same time, the planet is big and there's a whole lot of places. Colombia was calling me this year, but I wasn't able to organize enough of the logistics quick enough to do that trip this year. And well, with COVID and how things are looking, we'll see when's the next time we'll be able to travel. But yeah, I absolutely loved Guatemala, and I would highly recommend anybody to go there. Language barrier, if it's only a barrier if you make it a barrier, in a sense that a lot of times, you know, they already know what you want when you go into a shop. So it's more or less, I would say, install Google Translate on your phone and don't be shy to talk in individual words, you know, like, you know, quantra cuesta, you know, how much, and just pointing at things, you know, and or even just the dollar, you know, how much. Most places they'll help you out. So it was really, really nice.
So you don't really speak Spanish then?
No, I like I said, I've got 100 days in a row of Duolingo. Like I've got very, very basic broken up Spanish. I've got just enough that I can, you know, cuatro cresta una habitación, like, you know, how much.
Yep.
You know, you just need the really, really basic stuff to be able to get through. And it's interesting, actually, like near Atlitan, Spanish is actually their second language. So in a sense that you're speaking a second or third language, but they're also speaking a second or third language. So, you know, it's just one of those things. They're very understanding, or at least from what I saw, they're very, very understanding. And that little kid that's like 8 years old in Simuk Champi was speaking English quite well, actually, because a lot of the Jesuit and there's a lot of religious groups that work in those areas that have language schools and are trying to teach the youth English, to basically to open up their cultural horizon. So yeah.
Which is the good period during the year for such a trip?
So Greg can probably confirm, their wet season sort of ends late November, and then starts up again in April, May. So anytime around that, like, it's winter that you want to be. Summer is not necessarily a lot warmer, but it's a lot more wet. If Greg can confirm that.
October through, May through October is the rain season.
Yeah.
But it only rains for, you know, an hour or two, usually in the afternoon. However, there are parts of the country that do get serious, so it can be challenging to come during that time if you want to travel the entire country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Charles came in February, which is actually probably one of the best months to come.
You got a delay in your video and
I have delay. Okay, let me get closer.
oh, there you're starting to get better. Yeah, and that's one of those things that, you know, a quick Google search will often tell you. You know, it's often one of the things that when I start looking at a destination, I'll do, you know, when's the best time to visit, and it's often trying to find that dry season that's not the heat wave season, and it's often what we consider spring and autumn of those areas. So yeah.
Generally, temperatures are the same year round.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, fuel was available almost everywhere. It was really nice for that. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? Greg, you want to add anything?
Yeah, like I said, I put together just a quick little fact sheet. Like I said, I'm a motorcycle guide, and I'm also a volcano guide. So Charles, next time you come here, you said that you almost had a heart attack climbing up to Mukhampe. Make sure you get out and exercise a lot before. But yeah, I'll just throw up a quick fact sheet, and I'll let you guys. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, first things first, I'm going to do a shameless plug of my presentation on May 16th. Traveling the Americas. I'm going to more or less be talking generally about logistics, expectations versus realities, how to prepare, lessons learned. It won't really be a whole lot of detail about locations, but how to create your own trip. As we're talking about motorcycles, these are the primary places to rent motorcycles. These are the three primary companies, all of them located here in Antigua. Charles went with Mag Tours. They're an excellent company. They maintain their bikes very well. Motor Tours, they're kind of more of a hodgepodge, kind of mix of motorcycles. You never know what you're going to get. And then Simoon, they more or less focus on ATVs, but they do have some motorcycles for rent to include the BMW 650s. You already talked about getting here. The only international airport, or the main international airport, is in Guatemala City. There's really nothing to see in Guatemala City itself, so once you get here, it's probably best just to come straight to Antigua to start your trip. Otherwise, if you're crossing over by land, we're surrounded by Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Antigua, getting to Antigua, you can get a shuttle 24 hours a day from the airport. And Antigua is a UNESCO Heritage Site. It was founded as a UNESCO Heritage Site in 1973. That's why everything is old and you don't see anything new. To include the cobblestones. There's a nice picture of Volcan Fuego from my campground, where I take you guys up to almost 4,000 meters to camp and watch the volcano explode. We have 2 active volcanoes just outside of Antigua. I highly recommend coming to see those when you do come down. You just need your passport if you're flying. It's got to have at least 6 months left on your passport. There's no medical requirements, no shots or anything are required coming from Canada, US, Europe, et cetera, et cetera. And then when to come, okay, the best time is December through April. April is going to be probably the most expensive time to come because that is Easter. Every weekend for a month leading up to Easter, they have processions throughout Antigua. And then the last week leading up to Easter, every day there are processions. That is when every hotel is booked and the prices are double. And like I said, dry season, April is, like I said, is most expensive, but December through February, it would be the time that I would recommend coming to Guatemala. That's when it's you're just over the rain season, so the roads aren't so dusty, and the weather is absolutely perfect. And that's that.
Right on, thanks.
I had a quick question about the shuttle from Guatemala City to Antigua. Is that something you pre-planned, or you just kind of grab a taxi, or how do you make sure that you get there without getting scammed on the price?
Yeah. So right when you get into the arrival at the airport, like in the arrival section, there's a kiosk, and what you do is you go there, you pay at the kiosk, and you get a voucher for the taxi. So then you're not dealing with money in the taxi halfway down the trip. Like you're paid, and it protects you in a sense because your ride is recorded. Like, buddy won't be able to drive you into a dirt road and hide you away because he's registered. They know you exist. So yeah, you just basically, as soon as you come off the plane. Another thing that just in the arrival that I mentioned earlier about a SIM card, $20 US gets you a SIM card and 3 gigs of data, and I forget how many minutes of communication, but the kicker, Facebook does not count in your data. Deezer Music does not count in your data. WhatsApp does not count in your data. So you pay 20 bucks, you get a SIM card with a local phone number, but you set up your WhatsApp. I was on the top of the Tikal Tower talking to Gustavo for 20 minutes, and it didn't cost me a penny of my data because the WhatsApp is unlimited use. I think personally, I think that's a killer deal. Just to be able to have data access almost anywhere. And honestly, yeah, a few section in the mountains, I didn't have any cell phone reception, but pretty much anywhere that people live, there is cell phone reception. It was actually funny going through tiny little villages. And if you notice, you'll see a 70-year-old lady walking down the road and she's got a cell phone to her ear. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like it's, you know, it is modern times. You know, there's cell range pretty much almost everywhere. Yep.
Yeah.
For the return trip, I took the little, it's a Mayan silhouette for the, what is it called for you'll be able to get the name of the shuttle bus there, Greg, the one that leaves from Antigua.
Oh, there are tons of shuttle services, though.
Atitrans?
Probably one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of them. Every hotel, every tour agency will be able to offer you a shuttle. We also have Uber available here.
Yeah. I think it was 20 US. It wasn't a whole lot of money, even for an actual proper taxi, like my own taxi from Guatemala City to the little hotel or the little resort I stayed. Yeah, it's 20 US. It's pretty decent for the distance.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to wrap us up. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask or say?
Fantastic job, Charles.
We appreciate you pulling this together.
Right on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. Don't be shy. Ask away in the event. And like I said, I'll post the links to the map and the photo album so that you can peruse and look at the videos in better quality.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll send the whole itinerary to Sharon, and she can send that off to you, Charles, so you can add that into your portfolio.
Right on. Thank you.
Yes, and I'll be posting over the guests I have upcoming over the next few weeks. And I'm sure that was probably kind of fun for you, Greg, to see it from a different point of view, huh?
Spot on.
All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate you supporting and showing up. And thanks again, Charles. Good job.
Thank you.
And I will see you guys down the road. Thank you very much.
Alrighty.
Have a good one, folks.
Thank
Take
you.
care, bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
weekend.